In this video, I'll share how I use self-testing to become a more active learner. Self-testing is part of generative learning. It means generating answers from memory instead of just rereading notes. I found it helps me identify what I truly understand and what I need to review, making my study sessions way more effective. When I first heard the term self-testing, I didn't realize how powerful it could be. I used to spend hours highlighting and rereading pages, thinking that meant I was studying. But when I tried to recall the material later, I couldn't always explain it clearly. That's when I realized learning isn't about how many times you look at something, it's about how well you can bring it back from memory. Once I started using self-testing, my studying became more focused, and I felt like I was actually learning, not just memorizing words on a page. Self-testing involves actively recalling information rather than passively rereading it. You can use flashcards, practice quizzes, or even write down everything you remember after studying a topic. Research shows that this process strengthens your memory and improves long-term retention because it forces your brain to retrieve information, not just recognize it. When you reread your notes, your brain gets tricked into thinking it knows the material because it looks familiar, but that's just recognition. Retrieval is much harder, but that difficulty is what strengthens your memory. Every time you pull information out of your brain, you're reinforcing the neural pathways that store it. That's why self-testing is so much more effective than simply reviewing. Even spending a few minutes testing yourself after a study session can lead to much better recall later. To make it more effective, try turning your notes into questions. For example, instead of reading a definition, ask yourself, can I explain this in my own words? You can also use spaced repetition to revisit questions over time so your memory stays strong. Essentially, you're teaching your brain to remember under test-like conditions. This small change makes a big difference. I'll often take a page of notes and rewrite each bullet point as a question. It turns passive reading into active engagement. Sometimes, I'll mix up topics from different units to challenge myself even more. When I can answer without checking my notes, I know I'm ready. Using spaced repetition helps too, because it keeps older material fresh. The goal is to make your brain retrieve information when it's slightly faded, which actually strengthens your memory each time you do it. I first started using self-testing in my microeconomics class. Instead of rereading my notes before exams, I created digital flashcards and practiced recalling key concepts like supply and demand, opportunity cost, and market equilibrium. At first, I just quizzed myself randomly, but over time, I started tracking which questions I missed most often. I focused on those until I could explain them without looking. Eventually, I built a routine: study, self-test, review mistakes, and repeat every few days. It helped me realize what I didn't know yet, so I could focus my studying more efficiently. My test scores noticeably improved after switching to this method. At first, I struggled to stay consistent with self-testing because it takes more effort than rereading notes. It's easy to fall back on habits that feel easier in the moment, like flipping through notes or rewatching lectures. Self-testing requires more mental energy. You have to push yourself to think. But once I got used to it, I realized that it actually saves time overall because it makes my study sessions much more productive. It can also feel discouraging when you realize how much you don't remember, but that's actually the point. My advice is to start small. Quiz yourself after each study session instead of waiting until exam week. Use tools like Quizlet or index cards and review your mistakes. They're your best teachers. Another tip is to track your progress over time. Keep a list of questions you missed and revisit them later, or use a spaced review schedule to see how much you've improved. Consistency builds confidence. It's rewarding to look back at questions that once seemed difficult and realize how easily you can answer them now. That's how you know self-testing works. It builds lasting understanding, not just short-term recall. I've also found that reviewing older material keeps it fresh, so I don't forget it when it shows up on later exams. Using self-testing has completely changed how I study. I retain information longer, feel more confident before exams, and don't have to cram as much. It's not just about memorizing. It helps me understand and apply concepts more deeply, especially when I have to explain them in my own words. If you want to become a more active and independent learner, I really recommend trying self-testing. Challenge yourself. You'll be surprised how much more you can remember when you let your brain do the work. Self-testing doesn't require special tools, just curiosity and consistency. Once you start using it, studying becomes more interactive and less overwhelming. Over time, you'll notice that you not only perform better on exams, but you also feel more confident as a learner overall.